Alright, we got one more video. We'll watch. We'll see if it's any good.
However bad the West might get, you should never move to Dubai. Forget all
I've
the
always
videos
wanted to
you
go
see
to
of
Dubai,
celebrities
though.
being paid off to hype up Dubai's latest mega project.
Horrible.
This is
Really?
why I chose to live in Dubai and not in LA. It's no longer the American dream, it's the Dubai dream.
See, after traveling to 80 countries around the world, I found that Dubai is the best place to live
I've
and
always
work.
wanted to
Deep
visit
dive
Dubai.
Go down. Deepest pool on earth. 200 feet deep. Madness.
The truth is a lot
That's
dirtier.
crazy.
Behind the lip fillers, the still skyscrapers, and the fake beaches, Dubai is a modern-day nightmare. A city as rock solid and steady as the sand it was built on. It's a mirage in the desert that's doomed to failure. You see, if you type in Dubai into the search bar on YouTube, you'll generally find two kinds of videos. Some call out for the hellscape it is, listing off the human rights abuses and the truckload of reasons it's an awful place to live. But the others seem to say the exact opposite. There's tons
always
of
thought it
vlogs
was
by
an
Instagram
awesome,
models
beautiful place to
bragging about how
live.
amazing, safe, and clean the city is. All the guys in Bugattis driving around, banging hoes, and paying no taxes. So which is it? Or somewhat confusingly, they're both kind of true. If you're a wealthy influencer, Dubai can seem like a paradise. I've been tempted myself. Beachfront apartments, no income taxes, and a large community of like-minded expats makes it the perfect place to set up a business and fit out your Instagram story. You can barely walk a block through the center
Jeez, like look at this, bro.
without seeing a car dealership or a glistening mega mall. It's a place that's been designed for luxury, a playground for the rich and powerful. The one thing you can't deny is that Dubai is absolutely stuffed with money. This might imply that there's actually opportunity here, but just like everything else, it's all part of the image. Countless numbers of young Instagram models and hopeful young people move to Dubai and the UAE every year searching for their fortune. Now, of course, most of them won't make it. There's only so many likes and followers to go around, leading lots of them to turn to the infamous Dubai porta potty industry. Details are sketchy, with predatory NDAs and
What? This took a huge turn. Dubai porta potty influencers are apparently being pooped on for cash. How much cash we talking?
embarrassment to blame for the limited information. Some of it's far too sketchy to discuss on YouTube.
What?
But there's tons of examples of hopeful models getting massive offers from ruling elites for the most depraved acts you can imagine. Enticed by the offer of free flights, stays in luxury hotels, and 5-digit lump sums, models are coerced.
If like a rich Arabian Dubai guy or whatever invited you to fly you out to Dubai to stay with him, he parade you around in his Lambo, take you out to, would you go, chat? Would any of you guys go?
Into giving up their dignity. One report talks about a perverted party at a secluded mansion, in which she was paid $50K for acting out the owner's sick desires. Another model showed off her DMs, where she was approached for presents, getting offered $7K for her trouble. For a country where anything above hand-holding can get you a jail sentence, the rumors are shocking. But suppressing these kinds of stories is key for Dubai's future plans. If they do a bad job of it, they could scare young people and their money away. In the same way, all the vapid skyscrapers and artificial islands are part of a calculated ploy to turn Dubai into the
be offered millions of dollars
capital of the world. And it's sort of working so far. Mainly people are seeing Dubai as the new trendy place to go on holiday, with Dubai regularly being in the top 120 most visited cities in the world. But why have the UAE spent trillions on getting what used to be a small desert town there? Obviously, the UAE and other Middle Eastern nations are entirely dependent on oil for their income. It's what made them some of the richest countries in the world. But eventually, either the oil wells would run dry or the world would stop needing what's piped out of them. So what then? Well, the UAE is building Dubai into the empty paradise it is to prepare for this. It's a race against time. They need to diversify their income enough and prepare for the inevitable. It's a pattern we've surprisingly seen before in history. Cities with no significant natural benefits elevated to the wealthiest place in the world in the space of a generation. When the Mongol Empire raced and pillaged the majority of the known world, they became the richest people on the planet. Thousands of tons of gold and gems, along with the world's best scholars, artists, craftsmen, and workers, were brought back to Karakorum, the Mongol capital. A great palace was built to display it all, and what used to be a collection of tents became a sprawling city. But it was all painfully temporary. Conquest had brought it all there, and once the empire collapsed, the city was burnt to the ground and the wealth and the people disappeared. The same example has happened numerous times in other cities. Samarkand, once the seat of the mighty Timurid Empire, is a shadow of its former self. All that remains those days are the great ruins of the Kremlin palace. Great wealth and peoples gathered in a temporary boom, vanishing in a generation or two. Dubai is exactly the same, except it's even more lacking. There are no great structures or creativity that will stand the test of time. Instead, their palaces and monuments are made out of steel, concrete, and glass. If left unmaintained, they'll be eaten by the desert in just a few decades. And you can understand this by having a quick look at the history of the city. Long before the
fuck?
skyline was dominated by vapid skyscrapers, Dubai was actually a quaint fishing village known for pearl diving and trading.
Wow.
Since the 19th century, Dubai had been under the British protectorate, all the way up until 1971, and the British influence in the region significantly shaped the region's political and economic systems. Like many other similar nations, such as Singapore
British,
and Hong
bro.
Kong, the
They
British laid the
fucking-
groundwork for Dubai's
they fucked
international
everything
outlook
up.
and initial infrastructure development. Because just around the time that the British were leaving the region, Dubai would discover oil, completely changing the trajectory of the UAE, and the newfound wealth that came from it was smartly invested into modernizing infrastructure,
Jeff?
constructing new schools, hospital, roads, and a modern port.
you go in
The
there,
kingdom
Kenzie?
knew that they would have to diversify the money from the oil to keep the money machine going, and this marked the inception of Dubai's transition towards becoming the place we know today, where the government would keep on investing to make sure Dubai was a hub for finance, trade, tourism, and real estate, making this desert dirt patch one of the most famous cities in the world. And this strategic
That's actually pretty
diversification,
crazy.
coupled with an economic policy,
It really
attracted
is
foreign
a
investments
giant,
and global
massive
talent,
city in the
propelling
desert.
Dubai into the international stage. Along with no taxes, Dubai is the
No
perfect place for the
taxes?
rich. And as more and more money came in, Dubai's leadership would take more and more gambles,
That's
doing everything they could
crazy.
to stand out,
Wait,
building
why they're-
crazy architecture with no actual meaning or heritage, just to show off on the world stage, creating
That's
things like the Burj
insane.
Khalifa and these artificial islands that were all
Yeah, bro, they built these giant art. Listen, this is a whole nother topic I learned about. So they built these artificial islands. They built 6 of them. First of all, this is an AI generated image. This actually doesn't look like this. Only one of them got partially completed. The rest of them, they spent billions and they spent trillions on, and the ocean kept wiping them away. The architects couldn't get it right. And one of them got halfway built. This isn't real. It got halfway built like this, and it kind of looks like this, but most of the islands are empty. And literally only like 50 or 40 people live on it, and the rest of them are empty because it just wouldn't work.
part of a deliberate strategy to etch Dubai's name on the global map.
Oh, yeah,
These
yeah.
infrastructural marvels were not merely about aesthetic appeal, but they embody Dubai's ambition to transition from its humble past to a future filled with boundless possibilities. But to fuel this rapid growth in the country, they couldn't do it just by themselves. Hardly anyone lived in this region, and the foreign investors weren't going to be making the buildings. And so it quickly became clear that Dubai needed labor, and fast. And so to fuel its rapid development, Dubai would do everything it could to bring in huge swaths of migrant workers into the country. And this is where the
Wow.
foundations of Dubai would become very shaky. Around
I didn't know
90%
anything
of the
about
population
this.
of the UAE are immigrants as well. The majority come
What?
from India, Africa, or other developing countries. Unlike Karakoram or Salman Khan's people, they weren't
That's
brought there
crazy.
by war.
I didn't know
Instead,
that.
it's economic pressure and desperation that has sucked them in. Their experiences are the real
90%
Dubai.
are
It couldn't be any
immigrants
farther
in
from what
Dubai?
the influencers are showing off.
Several investigations into Qatar stadiums revealed that employers usually house workers in private camps far from city centers, where they are forced to live in overcrowded rooms
What
and
the
unsanitary conditions. And
They
at
make
work,
all the workers-
their lives are put at risk. Migrant workers are often given the most dangerous jobs on the site.
In many ways, the same things that bring influencers to Dubai are also what brought
That's
the millions
crazy.
of migrant workers opportunity. In countries like Nepal, India,
they
Bangladesh,
put
the
'em on the
Philippines,
out-
and all
the
around the world,
outskirts and
people hear
shitty
about how they can
areas.
support their families by working abroad. Agents from recruitment companies promise them good wages, accommodation, and a way to make a life for their loved ones. The first part of the exploitation comes as a large recruitment fee,
Dark
often around
side of Dubai.
$2,000.
Yeah.
The workers are told this covers their visa and travel.
Real
In reality,
SB.
it's simply extortion. It also keeps them in debt, a key part of the scam as it limits their options to escape. The total of illegal fees for just one security company operating
That's
in this
crazy.
way, G4S, amounted to millions of dollars, and that's just one company. Once they arrive in the UAE, their passports are confiscated and they're sent to live in dismal camps on the outskirts of the city. One Vice documentary shows a warehouse where each cramped room houses 9 people each, with only one shower between every 5 rooms.
What the
wages they were
fuck?
promised get slashed by 2/3 in some
And they
cases.
think I've just been watching YouTube videos of YouTubers, Instagram models in Dubai doing all this cool shit.
Previous contracts getting ripped up, then the payment of these meager salaries are often delayed or simply forgotten, leaving the workers and their families at home in even more peril.
The guys were being paid almost nothing to build it.
So they're being built
Love
by
you, Kato.
slaves.
That's not an exaggeration, yeah.
Really?
Once they find themselves out there and they realize how much they're getting paid or how much they're not getting paid, They're indebted by the time they arrive there, so it is bonded labour.
When the pandemic hit, it threw everything into disarray. The UAE made promises that companies had to provide food and shelter even if they fired their employees. Often though, this didn't really happen. In fact, lots of these common practices are still illegal under UAE law, but they're rarely enforced. The workers are too worried about losing what little income they have to go to the authorities.
You not going to Dubai, is it gonna really help the people here? But would you guys still go to see the giant, futuristic, insane city?
Money and they leave, they likely won't see us again. One man described being owed 10 months of salary. Without it, he couldn't return home empty-handed to see his family in need. Another needed surgery and incurred medical expenses. His employers began taking 75% of his salary to pay it off, keeping him in indentured servitude. Now, of course, the UAE and Dubai's government pushes this all into the background. Under what's called the kafala system, migrant workers' rights are meant to be upheld by the companies they're working for. As non-citizens, they're relatively unprotected by labor laws, have no minimum wage, and are left to their employees' mercy. These people who built everything that makes Dubai what it is today are forgotten and swept aside. So what have they all been working tirelessly in unbearably hot desert temperatures to create? Well, unfortunately, just like nearly everything in Dubai, it's all in service of appearance. What the fuck is that? The most recognizable landmark in Dubai has to be the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world. Despite having numerous problems, it's
the tallest building in the world,
probably the city's greatest achievement so far. Its construction was plagued by accusations of typical worker abuse, with allegations of laborers being paid less than £3 a day.
Wow.
When it was finally completed, the sewage system supporting it wasn't nearly capable enough. It's what led to the need for scores of sewage trucks to ship it out after the system was overloaded. A viral video shows the massive queues of sewage trucks, although most weren't coming from the Burj Khalifa.
The sewage is transported away using trucks.
They have to go and get the sewage and transport it back and forth in trucks.
Surprised that the tallest building in the world, which is a spectacle in every other way, does not cater to this serious dilemma.
That's actually insane. What's it called? We should look at a video of that tower, how big it is.
Will apparently solve this problem though. Even with these issues, Burj Khalifa is probably the best of a bad bunch of Dubai's senseless construction projects. The artificial islands like the palm fronds and the
I learned about
far
these.
worse.
So like literally they tried to build like an amusement park island. Like they tried to build their own island in the shape of like all the countries, and it just failed because like think about it, it's just not possible to build islands in the ocean in reality.
Them started with the sand. You would expect Dubai to have an endless supply of it. Other than oil, it's the only thing that Dubai always has plenty of. But desert sand couldn't be used. The grains were too large and it would just melt away into the sea. Instead, they needed a specific type of sand pulled up from the seafloor using specialist trawler ships. 94 million tons of sand were taken from just the Palm Islands, destroying the ecosystem off of the coast of Dubai.
Dude.
The result is 40 kilometers.
Not even joking. Billions, chat. This project killed billions of fish and other things. Isn't that insane? To build these, the thing is, nothing even came of it. Nothing came of it. They couldn't build in the islands. They ran out of funding and money.
There's a new coastline, but not much else. Home to over 40 hotels and a collection of mansions for the ultra-rich, they amount to yet another playground for the rich and wealthy. Without constant replenishment and sea defenses, they'll disappear into the water.
Constant replenishment
is just another artificial land project, but they're in even more peril. Designed to represent different parts of the world laid out on a rough map, most of them are still just piles of sand, left unfinished and uninhabitable. They're also slowly sinking into the sea, which combined with rising sea levels means all of the artificial land exists on borrowed time. And this was supposed to be their groundbreaking project that would house the ultra-wealthy and ultra-high-class shops. And one other ridiculous project recently undertaken by Dubai is the construction of an artificial replica of the moon. The $5 billion proposal details a carbon fiber orb 200 meters across.
Like they're building a $5 billion orb in the middle of their moon. A $5 billion moon orb, like art, just orb. And they got people on the edge of the town starving and dying, the workers that they're not paying.
The usual luxury spas, hotels, and houses included within. It still isn't guaranteed to happen,
and stuff inside of it.
Moving along, and you can easily imagine it in Dubai. At least it may provide an alternative for billionaires taking their own pleasure cruises into space. But it's a mockery of nature, which in Dubai hasn't really found a footing. The city is sparse when it comes to actual greenery, other than the odd palm tree or water-hungry lawn. There was a project to grow and transplant 1 million desert trees to make the city a bit more palatable. Announced in 2010, 130,000 square meters of land was dedicated to growing the saplings into actual trees, but halfway through the project, it all fell apart. Another project this time for a $5 billion mega mall got in the way. The land, the energy, and the water needed to grow were requisitioned. Workers were barred from the site, and the project was all but abandoned. By 2020, over 80% of the trees had died in the desert heat, without any water. The plan for the mall that was meant to replace them was then also abandoned, a testament to the instant gratification culture of Dubai and the sheer wastefulness that permeates the city. All of this is kept in place by authoritarian laws.
It is crazy because, dude, I've seen so many YouTubers go to Dubai, and I see all the rich luxury. Like, it's not like the richest area in Los Angeles or the richest area in America. It really is in another level of just wealth in such a condensed area, just an insane amount of money.
Designed to safeguard the rich and powerful. Punishments are often draconian. One British national was recently slapped with a 25-year sentence for having just a few bottles of CBD oil in his car, a non-psychoactive substance. Another woman was recently released after 9 months after she allegedly touched the arm of an airport security official. The police can arrest you on trumped-up charges, and the courts can sentence you to decades for the smallest of crimes.
I'd be so scared to go to Dubai
respect of the authorities, which is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it's part of what makes Dubai so safe. It's why people like Andrew Tate and all these other influencers love this place. They can have their Rolexes on the beach and be fine, which is great, as many people describe accidentally leaving their bag in public then coming back hours later to find it untouched, as the punishments for theft are so harsh that people just will never risk it. And living somewhere with useless and corrupt authorities can make this seem like a dream come true. But of course, it's mostly surface level. Petty crimes are punished harshly, but institutional abuse and systemic schemes of exploitation are ignored. Just like everything else, it makes it better for sensible tourists and elites, but much worse for the migrant worker population. But it doesn't have to be this way. You just need to look at Singapore, a city that's almost identical to Dubai in its origins, and yet they both operate so differently, with a vastly different culture. You see, these two cities both came from humble origins.
Singapore is actually getting pretty wild, Chad. Singapore is actually a city to look at and to visit. Now they do have a very, very strict laws there. Like you could get life for weed, I think, or like I think it's like you could get put down for or the death penalty for weed.
Small little fishing areas to huge modern urban centers. So how come today these two cities are so different culturally and fundamentally? Well, it's not just religion. You see, Singapore is widely known now as the Garden City.
Wow,
due to its relentless pursuit of integrating urban growth with environmental stewardship.
That's awesome.
It's been meticulously urban planned, with well-orchestrated public transportation networks, abundant greenery, and innovative land use, demonstrating the leadership's long-term vision for sustainable growth in the city. On the contrary, Dubai's leadership focuses on glossy monuments to materialism, these giant hollow skyscrapers, bizarre island projects, and luxury at all cost hotels completely overshadows the human need to be in nature, and also what they're doing to nature. Projects like their artificial islands completely destroy the marine ecosystems, and far from being sustainable long-term. But it's not just the environmental concerns that divide these two cities. The real difference here is how Singapore and Dubai both treat their migrant workers. You see, both of them rely on immigrant labor. Almost all their population is migrants, and yet Singapore's labor policies are so much different to Dubai's. They promote fair employment practices, ensure competitive wages, and foster a very safe and healthy working environment. Initiatives like the progressive wage model and the skills future movement underscore Singapore's commitment to enhancing the employability and welfare of its workforce. Dubai, however, is completely the opposite. It has terrible labor practices, awful rights and living conditions
like
for
giant
migrant
travel ad for Singapore.
There's no minimum wage law, and they'll often withhold migrant wages.
No minimum wage
in Singapore,
in
they have
Dubai?
structured policies.
Bro, there's no taxes, no minimum wage in Dubai, and there's no laws, so that the police make up the laws. That's crazy.
I mean, to ensure that foreign workers complement the city rather than substituting the local workforce, and their legal framework provides avenues for dispute resolution, safeguarding both employee and employee interests, whereas Dubai's capitalist system restricts the rights of migrant workers and makes them dependent and vulnerable on the government. Singapore emphasizes continuous learning and skills upgrading to not only enhance the competitiveness of its workforce, but also to promote social mobility. But in Dubai, you either have money or you don't. And if you don't have money, you almost have no chance of going up the ladder. The only rich people in Dubai are the Dubai-born elites themselves and the businessmen looking to escape tax laws in their own countries. Regular migrant workers, though, have almost no chance of going up the ladder. And whilst both the countries are extremely harsh on crime, making the cities very safe for people, Singapore at least has some hints of democracy. There is some level of free speech, albeit within certain bounds, whereas Dubai's monarchical system censors any dissenting voices, limits any public discourse, and represses free thought. It all goes to show, don't just willingly believe all these influencers, people like Will Smith and all the other scores of celebrities that are paid millions to advertise Dubai as a paradise.
You think they knew that Dubai was as fucked up as what it is, Chad?
a small group of elites creating vanity projects off of the back of millions of desperate workers, half of which gets abandoned or forgotten by the next shiny mega project. At least we can be safe in the knowledge that it won't go on forever. Eventually the facade will crumble as people realize the empty, vacuous nature that permeates Dubai.
You can't even have sex in Dubai, that's crazy. Alrighty, chat.
Is this revenge?